Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of Power Software's Welcome to the New Normal. Power Software develops digital workplace solutions that improve the employee experience, helping companies write their own future of work by leveraging the talent of their entire workforce. My name's Tony Todd. I'm from the Rumeur Publique agency in Paris, and in this series I've been speaking with business leaders, thinkers, visionaries, academics to explore the megatrends, the ecosystems, the technology, the thinking that's shaping the way we live and work as we emerge into the new normal. My guest today is Sylvain Newton. Sylvain, hi.
Nice to meet you, Tony.
Sylvain, who's speaking to us from Munich today, is the owner and founder of Newton Consulting, a consulting practice focused on the development of leaders, teams, organization, and his main area of focus are executive coaching, teams interventions, leadership development, and the future of work. Sylvain, great to have you with us today. Can you just give us an overview of your approach when you're dealing with companies and you're talking about the future of work? What is your approach with companies?
The way I work with companies, Tony, is to help them use data in order to make sense of what's happening right now. There is a lot of discussion around the future of work, but often those discussions are belief-based. They are based on your experience, what you think of working in a remote setup, maybe some good experience you had, maybe bad experience you had. And often it's only based on, your own belief, your own thought about it. You like it, you don't like it. And what I'm trying to do is to bring data in the game so that when you have a leadership team, a board that comes together and try to figure out where do we want to go with the future of work for our company, we do that based on data. So it's a process by which we collect qualitative and quantitative data, simply doing a survey, doing some interviews, some focus group, and we collect that information in order to make recommendation to that company in terms of what's going to work for you. There is not one future of work. There is not one template out there that tells you what you need to do. It's based on your industry, your history, your strategy, the type of talent you are trying to attract. And so we do that in a very contextual way.
Were you doing this before the pandemic started? I know the pandemic has accelerated thinking around the future of work, but were you already doing this beforehand?
So the future of work is really not new, and people call that new work, but there is nothing new about it. You might know that the term new work was coined by Friedrich Bergmann back in the 70s. And since then, we've been thinking about the future of work, not me personally, but there is research around it. There are people involved in it. There are books and articles being written about it. I think the pandemic, Tony, what it did, it accelerated the discussion. So people that were putting that on the back burner, they realized they had to do it. Some company like myself, when I was at GE, I started to work remotely back in the early 2000s. So I have 22 years of experience with it. Some other company have a few months and they didn't want it, but it happened to them. Now the genie is out of the bottle, if you want. People are talking about it, employees are expecting it. And so we try to support leaders that might not be sure what to do next and give them data so that decisions are made into what matters for them in their situation.
Do you come across, is there still reticence, people not wanting to advance into a hybrid future? Do you see that from the managers and leaders that you're dealing with?
I do. I see lots of people excited about it, and I see people resisting about it. It's a classic change situation. I see people that embrace it fully. I see people that can't wait to see each other face to face for good reason. It's not like they are resisting, but they see all the things that hybrid work is doing to them, which is not all great right now. And what I'm trying to tell them is, look, what you've experienced the past 2 years is not the future of work. What you've experienced is an emergency lockdown. That's very different. So you had to send people within 48 hours home, and they haven't seen each other for a long time. They are tired. They want to see their colleague. Work is very intense. It's very scheduled. There are less times where you can just have side discussion with your colleague. So I fully understand that, but helping them understand the future of work is not what you've been through, but it's a healthy mix of remote and face-to-face that you can intentionally design and shape right now to bring more value to your organization, to be able to attract the talent you will need. I think that's a very different discussion.
There's two sides to it as well. There's the developing a new management mindset, and then there's also having the approach to the relevant tools and the technology that's going to make it work. Well, how would you advise companies and leaders to approach the future of work in a way that's going to work?
Yes, so the first thing we do is trying to frame that future of work thing. What is it for you? What I have seen is typically 4 categories in which you can want to define objective. One is where people work. And the where and when, by the way, because it can be both location agnostic, but it can be time agnostic when you work. That's typically the biggest burst out there. Then there is how we work together, which has more to do with the culture, with the leadership ties, maybe working in agile mode, all those topics. The third bucket is how you interact with your customer, because your customer have been through the same thing and their expectations have changed. And then the fourth one is how you build resilience organizationally, so that when we get out of that crisis, we are better prepared for the next one. So companies that have a very holistic way, we are going to find objective in those 4 categories. And some others say, you know what, the when and the how, which is more the hybrid work and the culture, is enough, and that's fine as well. So framing what is future of work for you, defining some objective that you make measurable. So future of work is not that fancy HR thing that's intangible and I can't grasp. No, we are going to measure it very specifically so that we can create a kind of dashboard. And as a leadership team, we are going to look like you look at your customer sales or you look at your expenses. You are going to look at your future of work dashboard and see how that future is shaping as we learn more and more, because there is still a lot of questions around what's going to happen in the coming year.
Which is why I'm going to pick out what I think is one of the most important words you used there, which was resilience. Are companies more resilient now than they were before the pandemic? Has this forced their hand to make them prepared for the unpredictable in the future?
So the aim, so resilience, and that's maybe the difference with resistance. So resistance is you try to survive. You go through something and you are glad it's over. Resilience, ideally, you come better out of it because you've learned from it, because you grew out of it. I think some company will do that, but not all of them. It's like in any crisis. Some company had to close during the crisis with all the negative impact. Some other are surviving and some other are thriving. And what we are trying to do with our approach is to help more companies thrive during that crisis and come better as a result. It can be in terms of your operation processes. It can be in terms of your IT infrastructure. I think it has a lot to do with your leadership style, with your culture, with the skill level of your employee, so that the next crisis that we can't foresee now, but for sure is being prepared somewhere, we are better prepared for that when it comes.
Are you optimistic about the future, Sylvain?
I'm super optimistic, Tony. I think what's happening has forced us to ask questions that were there in the discussion around leadership and culture for 20, 30 years. An example of that, you see a real shift of power from company to employee. You see employees that have more voice, that will make more decision about what they want from work. They want, of course, a salary, but they want more than that. You hear a lot about purpose those days. So I think it's bringing to the surface a lot of discussion that were out there, maybe not taken so seriously by everybody, and it's a very healthy development. Now, I think most important is not going to be perfect. Going to the office day by day was not perfect. Working remotely will not be perfect. We need to understand that. But most importantly, be in action today. Shape it. Don't wait for it to happen or wait for your competitor to be ahead of you and take all your talent. Try it out. Do some pilots. Measure it to see how it works. Don't hesitate to change if it's not working. Be in action and shape that like you shape your strategy, your customer interaction, or your product.
Sylvain, thank you so much for your insights. Now, Sylvain, when this podcast is published, you will have just published a new paper online. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure, and I will be happy to share the link, obviously, if it's of interest. But what I did in that, Tony, was try to see the difference between what I call a future of work 1.0 and future of work 2.0. When we started with the pandemic, we had a lot of thoughts about future of work, but I think coming out slowly, hopefully, of the pandemic, we have already so much better idea about what the future will be about. So in that paper, I articulate some hypotheses, I build a model, and I hope it gives some ideas and direction for leaders that want to take action now.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to reading that. Sylvain, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Really, really interesting chat.
Thank you, Tony.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in to this episode of Welcome to the New Normal. We will be back again in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and we cannot wait to see you next time. Thank you very much indeed.